All right, hello and welcome to our Lunch and Learn today. We've got a couple pre-submitted questions we can talk about. I'm going to give it just like a minute or two for anyone else to join that's going to be joining today. If you have any other questions in addition to our pre-submitted ones, please feel free to type them up in the chat and we'll be happy to get to them if we get a chance. Um, and we'll get started with our first pre-submitted question in just a minute. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started then. If I didn't say it before, my name is Jeremy Litwinowitz. I will be leading our Lunch and Learn today. So we do have two pre-submitted questions. So we'll start with our first one that came in from Darren. And that says, I have a data repeater with a header container, but I am unable to have it so that the size of the header container expands as the data repeater expands. So, Darren, I'll let you speak in case you have anything that you want to add or any clarifying statements before we get started. So if you don't have anything you want to add, please go ahead and speak up. Otherwise, I'm going to start kind of creating some data repeater stuff just to get this tested.
Yeah, hi. So I was trying to experiment with that today as well. It does seem like the more rows that I add, I'm limited by the space of the window, if that makes sense. I see the problem with the data repeater as well. So say if I set like the height of it as 200, I add a couple rows, and then when I hit that 200, that height of 200, it then becomes like a scrollable window. I had hoped that it would just expand to accommodate for the extra rows. That's basically it.
Okay, got it. Okay, so let me just make this real quick. I'm just going to make a quick data repeater with some stuff from one of our training projects. And spell. Whoops, I almost forgot the actual header thing. Okay, so we've got header, got your data repeater there. So before anything else, is that like basically what you're looking at initially?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So then if I throw this just in a flow real quick, which I think this is empty, I haven't used it for anything. Yeah. My header test. So then you're talking about like if I didn't hit my buttons. Forgot to add the buttons. So you're saying I add my data, right? And as it gets too far, you're talking about how it does this,
Yeah.
and you're hoping that if I add it, it would just expand my form instead. Is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly it.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. Initially, I might have to look, or if anyone else on this call has an input. I'm not sure if it can. I guess I don't know if it can dynamically change like that.
The first thing to check, Jeremy, would be could you go into the data repeater and like see what the on the data repeater itself, like what's the size? Like what's the not the size, but of the rows and the columns. Yeah, I wanted to see that if it's in a resizable row or something.
In my example, one of them is not.
Yeah, but that one I think means yeah, make that resize. Let's see what happens for laughs and
Yeah, so
giggles.
they're all resized now. That doesn't change it.
If you remove
Like it
yeah,
resizes if you resize this. That's not a problem.
yeah.
That it just doesn't resize upon adding data.
Let's see. Where's the when you switch, go into the data repeater one more time, Jeremy, and change it to a responsive grid. See if there's any difference with that. So like the data repeater has like its own internal grid and just replace that with the responsive one. Does that not exist anymore? Did I just make that up? Hold on. I'm looking at my local right now. I could have. Let's see. Oops. Form.
I think I'm on 816 right now.
You're on 816. I'm on 818. I think that's the most recent version. I could be wrong. Create a form. Data repeater. Test DR. But if I remove this grid layout, I'm gonna remove it. Edit row, select surface. Just click on the surface and see where it says container type. Switch it to you can switch it to tab. Let's see, yeah. So that gives you that. And can you put a responsive grid inside of it?
I
There is
mean,
a
just a
responsive.
grid.
There is one called responsive. Is it not here?
Responsive grid was removed in 813.
Thank you. Okay, so
Ah,
I
there we
didn't
go.
make it up. Okay, gotcha. So it was removed. Yeah, switch it to horizontal stack then, and then put your controls in. Oh, thank you. 819 is the latest. Thanks. Okay, now save and just see.
Is that going to affect the main form as well?
I
That
don't
doesn't need to be.
I don't think so.
I'll just try it
We'll
first.
just try that test, yeah.
Nope.
Okay, so it still has that column there. I would probably say let's take it offline, or it might be a bug or something that we can research for.
Okay. Yeah, I think that then we can do that. Darren, I think I have your email. We'll maybe check in on some things, and then we can maybe reach back out when we get a chance to maybe test this a little bit more and figure out if what you're hoping for is possible.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
All right. Then, with that, we will move on to the next person. And so we have one more pre-submitted question, so we'll go to that one next. So again, just a reminder, if anyone else has anything else that they have not submitted, please go ahead and type it in the chat, and if we can get to that after we finish this next question. So the next question I have is from Andy Smith. It says, I want to create many local XML files. I've tried to create text file and open fast file write close, but they end up on our server. I tried to download with OPT decisions file XML, and debug says it succeeds, but I get nothing. So Andy, I'm going to allow you to speak if you would like to expand on that a little bit.
There we go. Now can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
There we go. And I saw myself talking. Okay, fine. Yeah, I couldn't find the mute button. Okay, so yeah, what I'm trying to do is this. I have it turns out a query. It's a direct database query into an Oracle table. It just says, select this, that, and the other from a certain table. And then I've wrapped around that a query which well, I've turned it into a query which for every record that SQL returns, puts out an entire XML tree full of and within the tree are the data, the real data from the XML. So what I'm trying to do is to execute this query, and for every row of that query, create an XML file with the data in there. Okay, so I want to have it's a settings file for a particular model, but that's irrelevant. Anyway, I want to have a file. So let's say that my SQL query returns 10 rows. I want to have settings1.xml, settings2.xml, settings3.xml up to settings 10. And I would like them placed in the downloads folder locally, or, and I've seen this before, but some box to say, here are 10 XML files for you to download. And then the user can download. So I think I've got something cooked up here where I've got a flow that will create a list of 10 populated file data objects. All right.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, it just says, okay, I'm done. Thank you. So how do I present a box? Now that I've got this list of file data objects, how do I actually download them into 10 physical text files locally?
Got it. So you got the files, the key is you want to be able to download them. I'm wondering, you might be able to just do it with a simple, if you're okay with having a form where a user would like have this appear and they can click on it.
Not really. No, I'm not.
So you want it to download automatically.
This has to be part of of a fully automated process.
Got it. Okay, so we definitely don't want like a button click.
Right. Can I show you what I've got, or do you want
to? We don't have the ability to have you screen share per se, but like if you have like a screenshot or even like something that we can like upload as long as it's not like a really long like import or something, you could email it.
No, not really. Oh,
yeah,
I was gonna say oh gosh. Oh. Yeah, because I was trying to attach a screenshot to this chat here, and obviously you can't.
Yeah.
Well, all it does is it executes a query, and then there's a for each step. Well, first, at the beginning of the flow, I have a create data step, which creates a null list of file data objects. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have a step that executes my SQL query.
Right.
And then I have a for each step, which goes through each row. And within that loop, it does a create text file step. And I don't have any path information in there. I just have it say settings and then the iteration number and then .xml. Then I have a load file step, which takes the same name, that is settings and then the iteration number .xml. That turns the data into a file data object, the text file into a file data object, and then I add it to the list of file data objects that I created at the beginning, making sure it says change value to the original list. And then when the flow is done, the output of the red terminator step is a list of file data objects, and I map it over, and it's all fine. I have a bunch of file data objects, but what do I do with them to turn them into physical files on your local server? I mean, please understand, our decisions server is a separate server. It's not local on our machine, right?
Yeah, I get what you mean there. I guess my biggest thing at the moment.
The big thing, here's what you do. Just make a create text file step. Just load that, just pull that in.
Oh.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. And then a load file step after that.
Right.
It would be, yeah, it's not on the flow. You just have to type in the same names, settings.xml. There you go. Yeah.
Whoops, that's not a dot.
Okay. So once you run this thing, you're going to get a real short file.
Right.
And what do you do?
Yeah. Now we actually have
And just to clarify, you want this to be download, like you want it just to automatically download or automatically place in another location?
The downloads folder is fine. I don't think it's possible to put it into any other location other than the local downloads folder, but the local downloads folder is fine.
Right. But I'm just asking, is there a particular location or that or is there like a preferred location other than downloads?
Not necessarily.
Okay, you just want to get it on the file system. That's just the objective.
Well, yeah, but this being a web-based thing, I think there are security considerations, right? You can't just have this thing creating files on your local hard disk anywhere you want, right?
Right. Well, that would dictate, right? Because Decisions has a service account that runs it, right? That runs that service. So if you want to store it, whether it be on the downloads of the server, or let's say you have your own network attached storage where you want to store stuff, you just have to make sure that service account has the permissions to that drive, right? If it does, then it could write to that and put it there.
I don't know what you mean. I mean, look, we're going to have, let's say, a dozen or so users using this when all is said and done. And what I want to be able to do is to have these XML files downloaded onto the user's local machine, not the decision server.
I see. So you want to just automatically download onto the user machine. Okay, I think I see.
Right.
Do you mind if I share, Jeremy? I want to experiment because
Yeah.
I think I have an idea. Alrighty. Alrighty. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing. Cause I'm wondering if this would work. So if I do, let's just do, what is it? Create text files, what you did, right?
Create
Yeah,
text
create
and
text,
then,
and then it's just
Sweet.
load file, not load
There
from file data.
right. Well, okay.
Load file, file string name. Sure. Okay, I gotcha. So then we got data, which would be data, file name. We'll just leave this as settings.xml, and we get to load the file. Select from flow. The output of this is where I don't think it output any data. Hold on. Outcome.
No, it just creates a text file. That's it. So
No,
you
just
have to, yeah, it doesn't even output the name. So you have to just type in the same name,
oh,
settings.xml.
okay. I got you.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing. Okay, there's a couple ways we could do this. I'm not sure if this how usable to get the what I can do is let's go ahead. I'm gonna store this somewhere. I'm gonna let's say I have a folder. I'm just gonna create a root folder here. And let's say this is like, temporary storage or something. And you're gonna have like, this could be run many times, right? Temporary storage. Put this at root. And I know what you can do is I can say, hey, let me go ahead, go back to my apps. And I think that's the name of the flow. Yep, that's the name of the flow. Created, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna store that file somewhere. So load from file data. And then it'll give me,
Wait a minute. What did you just do? You just dropped this, you just dropped it on the line and it connected it? I've never seen that.
yep, it's a nice little,
That's never worked for me.
I really
I've
have to get it
tried that
just
so
right.
many times. Well, I've tried that so many times. It's never worked for me. I always hover over the line and then
You can
it's
also,
if they
left click and
yes.
backspace and do that.
What's
That's
that?
what I like. If you left click the line and hit backspace, it disconnects it. So it makes it easier if you're
Oh.
trying to like get the trash can. I always struggle with getting the trash can.
Oh, I always hit delete, but I always
That
have to
works.
hit the orange plus sign, and oftentimes it moves around before I move my mouse over to it. So,
Yep.
well, anyway, load from
So
file data, and then what?
yeah, and so here's what I would do. So there's two types of like storage formats where we can like say we can temporarily store something. So we will need a little bit of logic for this. But what you can do is I can then say, okay, if I store this as a file reference, which is kind of a stored location on the decision server, and we can use logic to kind of manipulate it and make it temporary, so it's not just bloating up the entire, server system. And I'm going to store this file reference. And I'll kind of show you why I'm doing this. So the reason why I'm doing this, let me go ahead and grab another local right here. And I'm going to grab, where's the temporary storage? I got to get the ID of this thing. Copy the text, put it here. Oops. Constant.
Wait, what did you just copy? What is that?
Yeah, I'm going to explain this, but this is not the main part that I want you to see. So let me just kind of store this file there. What I'm trying to show you here is once I have this settings XML file here, any stored type of decisions, so document storage or file reference and decisions, you can right click and you can get a document URL to
How about
download.
download file?
Yeah. You can
Okay.
download file.
Okay.
And if I go back to this flow, there's steps in the file reference where I can say, I think it's get direct download URL, and I'm wondering if that just downloads it.
I'm still lost. I want to replicate what you're doing, and I can't. I have no idea what you're doing.
Sure. So all I'm doing here is I'll walk you through. So I create the text file here, right? Random text. I load the file based on the name, which you could do dynamically, and then I have this step called load from file data. And all this does is it just does file data and transforms it into a file reference. That's the key. I just wanted it from a storable format. So
Okay,
then what I could go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I'm looking in your step library and I'm searching for the word entity, and I have no step that's called create entity.
Yep, I'm gonna get to that one. So this one is a step in the internal services category. So you can't search for it. You have to manually navigate to it. And let me go up to the tree to kind of show you. Let me collapse this. So this should be your toolbox right here. And if you scroll down to integration and you expand that category, and then in this category, there's this area called internal services, and you
Okay.
expand that one. And then the
Yeah.
specific service that I found was the was it file reference? I'm blanking. File reference service. There it is. File reference service. And then you get a list of these documents. I mean, not document, a list of these steps.
Steps.
Yeah, there you go. And so
Okay.
the one I have right here is just this one, the create entity from file reference. And so over here, what I can do is I can try to get the, what I'm trying to test here is I want to get the direct download URL so I could just download this automatically to
Okay,
kind
and
of
that's
get that
another.
feature.
All right.
It might be.
Okay.
I'm not sure. That's what I'm testing out right now. Get data from path. This just gets file. Get download URL. Oops, because if we can't, I thought I remember there being a URL download for create entity file reference. Does this help put the ID? It does. So I can do this. Select from flow. This gives me the ID somewhere. That's where it's stored. I think it's an extension data entity ID. Let's try. I don't know if it's that one. There's a specific piece here, file reference ID. I think it's that one. But let's test it out and see what happens. Because yeah, this should just output me the URL. I don't think it's gonna. Yeah, it just tells me what the URL. Okay. That we can do something with this. Okay. So then there's another step we could add. Let me kind of move this so that my designer's a little bit larger. There's a very powerful step called the end form session. It sounds like a form, but you don't have to use it as a form. End form session. Right, and you can drag that over. And what the end form session step does, it's a nice kind of multi-faceted step. One, it allows you to display a message, which we don't want from the circumstance, or we can open up a URL. And so in this case, I said, hey, let's get the download URL, and then let's go ahead and navigate the user or whoever's running it to that URL. And I hopefully, here's what I think, is that it will allow us just to download that whatever you call it, file. Let's test that out. Because I'm not sure if that doesn't work. Oh, let me run it. I think I have to run it first. Let me go ahead. Let me just run this. Nope. So I think I have the wrong. So it functioned. I just think I have the wrong ID. Yeah, I have the wrong ID. Okay, so that's no worries. We can update that for this. Yeah, let me delete some of these. I'll go back here. Test. I'll change. And we got this here. We create this. Get document URL. I don't think it's the file reference ID. Let me try the entity ID. Let's see if that is it. So if that passes through, then the get output should be here. And then when I run this, let's see if that gives us the file. It says, yeah, basically what I'm just trying to do, I'm just trying to find the right ID. There's a certain ID I need to get, and maybe I might need to add like a get ID step. Integration, internal services.
Okay. Well, I'm starting to think that the that temporary folder is sufficient.
Get
Sure.
ID, get data. So yeah, it could work. There could be a couple things we might have to do just to get it. But basically, I know my problem is I just don't have the right ID, but you can utilize somewhat of this logic. Obviously, you might not need this part, but wherever you get your files, you can utilize getting a download URL and then using end form session step.
Well, as I say, I'm creating them on the fly. I mean, again, the use case here is that I have a query and the query has a bunch of data points. So what I've got is this constant string, which is loaded with XML, but it has some tags in the middle of it where the data belong.
Sure.
So I'm just doing a, and I'm doing this in the SQL actually.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just doing replace the tag with the data point, then another tag with another data point, another tag with another data point.
Yep.
So I end up with valid SQL,
Sure.
at 5 or
I'm with
10
you.
of them with different data in each one.
Mhm.
And I want to be able to take these XMLs and put them somewhere.
Yeah. No, exactly.
I'm beginning to think maybe the folder full of these is probably good.
Yeah. Another thing you could do is there's also zip steps where, like, let's say there's a list and maybe you want to zip them because you don't want it to be too large. You can zip the files. I think it's like called zip advanced, and you can pass in a list of file data, zip it, and then you can have it store it somewhere in the decisions folder and download it, and then you get a download URL where you can hit it. The other
Okay, that
nice
sounds
part
interesting.
is if, let's say, I'm going to create another folder.
You said zip advanced?
Yeah, or if you just look up zip. Oops, I'm in the wrong section.
Yeah.
Let me type.
Or how
It's either
about
zip advanced or like
what about zip
zip
files?
files. I think both would work. Yeah, the only difference is one gives you, like, if you have a certain, constraint key size, and if you want to put a password on it, that's the only
Okay.
difference. So, but zip files, I don't know what the sensitivity of the data is, but you could just zip the files if you're not worried about, putting a password on it. But we do have that option.
Okay. Egads.
Another here's another cool thing, or the other file type we have in decisions. I want to say this is temporary storage 2 that you could use if that one doesn't work. Where if you, like, let's say you can't get the ID, temporary storage 2. This one I know you can. So let's say I have a document. Let's say I just put this, I already have a document here. This is actually a different type of data type in decisions. Utilizing the documents data type. And this one, you can get a document URL. And if you call this URL, then it will just download it. And there's certain steps in the toolbox, especially if you go into the internal services document service, you'll find, like, hey, hit the download, get download URL, and then combine it with the inform session step. And you'll be able to download the file on the fly and just open up a new window. So you have 2 ways.
Can now do me a favor if you can
Sure.
get rid of this, and if you can open some flow, and so that you can see the download toolbox, or the toolbox. I mean,
Yeah. Download toolbox.
just open up any flow.
Yeah, I was trying to get back to this one.
Okay, and do me a favor and type the word download in the search bar.
Sure.
Now, what makes all this so difficult is this. For example, just hover your mouse over the word download.
Over here.
Okay, I'm sorry. The next one, download by SFTP.
Yep.
Now click on the little information icon. Okay, and click view documentation for this step.
View documentation.
Okay, I'm getting 404, not found.
Oh, interesting. We can definitely get that updated for you. I'm not sure, because that should be tied to, yeah.
Now, here's another one.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to the flow, there's another one that says download file to path.
Mm-hmm.
Hit the information icon.
Yep.
Where's the link?
Yes, I know we're continually working on the links to the documents. I don't think we have them over all the steps, but we can definitely submit a ticket to get this one updated for you.
Okay, now if you would, here there's one that says download object.
Yep. Download
Hover over that.
All the way down here.
Yeah. What's that? It doesn't even have a 1-sentence description.
Yep.
That's what makes this so tough. It's not only that, I mean, what you've just described is really way too convoluted a way to do something very, very simple. But also, the fact is that when I'm searching for a list of steps and I want some documentation on it, a large percentage of the time, either there is none, or I can't find it, or it's blank, or whatever.
Mhm.
And you know,
Sure.
honestly, before you release version 9 into the wild, I'm glad it's still beta. Before you release it version 9 into the wild, absolutely every single one of these should be correct. Not one exception. This is just really, really tough to work with,
Sure.
you
No, I
know.
totally understand.
And any project that we have involving, trying to use decisions is hampered by that. It's taking
Mhm.
twice as long as necessary. You got to just, rely on the fact that there might not be any documentation. You just got to kind of play and mess around with it, or
Mhm.
join lunch and learn meetings or whatever. It just takes
Sure.
way too long to get anything done. And we're falling behind on the work that we have to do.
Sure.
And the documentation is not the only reason, believe me, but
Sure. Sure.
there's a lot of work. There's a lot of QA work, especially that's got to
Sure.
be done, that I would recommend you do,
Sure.
as a paying customer before 9
Yeah.
is released into the wild. I
No, I appreciate
really
that.
recommend that.
Yeah. No, I appreciate your feedback, and I'll definitely take it, and I'll definitely talk to
Okay.
see if we can get that, at least some headway on that stuff, because I do understand it is difficult, especially when there is, not descriptions on it. So I appreciate your feedback, Andy.
All right. Well, I got to run to another meeting, but
Okay.
I appreciate your help. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, that was all of the pre-submitted questions we had for today. Does anyone else have any other additional questions to add to the chat, or anything else we can discuss before we end for the day? Yeah, I see you're raising your hand. You can go ahead and speak up.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, to Jared and Andy's concern is kind of like a security concern. So you cannot basically force somebody to download, like a client to download files, because they could be malicious. Either client needs to confirm that via at least calling the Explorer or whatever you use to confirm that you want to save that file. Or if those clients are on the shareable network, should be able to send that on the shareable network from decisions. I mean file system. So if if those clients are connected to the same file system, you can send it from decisions. If that makes sense.
Yes, I think it makes sense to me. We'll definitely make sure we try to reach out and clarify that with Andy, since he already left this call. But I do appreciate that input and your comments on that, because I'm sure will be helpful for him to know. So thank you.
Also, I'm sorry. Another cool thing for him would be to create, like, for example, if they use AWS, create like a pre-signed S3 bucket file and download that pre-signed, because that signature will expire. That's another option.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions from anyone else today? All right. Well, I appreciate everyone joining today and sticking around and listening to what we had. If you have any other questions, please feel free to send an email to join another lunch and learn. And yeah, so tomorrow we will have Will running. So you can join again and submit any questions that you may have. And I will do my best to get back to you, Darren, with a quick text and see if I can get any more information on what you were looking for. Other than that, everyone have a great rest of your day. Thank you for coming today.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks all.